This is Rich Brown with American Warrior Society again. I'm one of the co-founders. Today I'm here joined again with one of our contributing authors, Andrew Keith, and also one of our plank owners, Kevin Weber. And before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of background. Of course, my bio is on the American Warrior Society Meet the Founders page, so I'll skip that. Suffice to say, I was a Marine for 23 years, 3 years in law enforcement. And Andrew, tell us a little bit about your background.
I was in the Marine Corps for a little bit, but then I got out, became a policeman, and I'll save all the details. You can actually read my articles if anyone would read them. Find my bio at the bottom. It's very easy. I write on a first grade level, so that is pretty easy to read.
Is it worth reading those articles to get to that bio?
Yes, preferably read the articles down to the bio. Don't just scroll through them.
What we wanted to do today on this segment was kind of talk about something that Andrew, I think you and Mike had talked about in one of the podcasts a little while back, was how the average American's not ready for the level of violence that they would encounter in a self-defense situation. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, me and Mike touched on it briefly. It's not necessarily like, speaking from a point like, okay, well, I've seen this in my travels and, you haven't kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of people, everything in life is perspective. Mm-hmm. You go through life with your perspective of how you live, and you think other people typically live the same way you do, unless you get, a job or something doing other things where you're exposed to a different side of society. Mm-hmm. So every day before I was a policeman, every day I woke up, I went and did my job, and I came home, and I thought pretty much everyone else in life did the same thing. You get up, if you're a banker, you go to the bank, you do your job as a banker, whatever it is, bankers do, and then you come home. And you think everyone else gets up and goes to their job and they do the same thing. But they don't. Bad guys in the criminal element don't live the same way we do. They don't come from the same places we come from. They weren't raised the same way we were raised. You're talking about an individual who will come rob you at an ATM or a gas station or a grocery store parking lot or whatever else. They'll come rob you because that's their way of getting money.
Yeah, I want to pause right there. So kind of what he's talking about is there's two types of predators, and some of the things that I've studied. There's a process predator and a resource predator. So a resource predator might be like what Andrew was just talking about, someone who is out to attain your resources by preying on you, okay? Then there's the process predator, and that's the person that's more like a serial killer. They enjoy what they're about to do to you. It creates great pleasure for them. And when they want to move you from one location to the other, they're moving you to the crime scene, okay? Mm-hmm. So, I wanted to make that segue on what you were talking about with the resource predator.
Yeah, most of the predators, serial killers are fairly rare.
Right.
They're not on every corner. They get off in the process. Mm-hmm. The whole process leading up to your murder is what they're after. That's what they enjoy is doing that and getting away with it, which is why they're so hard to catch, because they kill people they don't know. That's right. No. 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, if someone is murdered, they're killed by someone they know. Right. And so as the police, that's typically where you start. The old circle mentality. You start the circle small, and you get the circle big until you find the person who did it. And the resource predator is typically what we think of when we think about being robbed, mugged, raped, things like that. Carjackings, things like that. They're after a goal. They want it there on the spot.
The other thing I want to say is, if you haven't listened to the podcast we did with William April, who's a psychologist, a phenomenal podcast where William actually goes in and talks to these people in prison and finds out what their motivations are. So I encourage you to check that out if you haven't already. One of the other things I want to say on what you're saying, Kevin, there's something called confirmation bias. It's a psychological condition. And you get that confirmation bias when you live in that same little bubble that you're in every single day. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, everybody's a good guy just like me. Look.
Well, we assume everybody loves guns. We assume everybody thinks the same way that we think. Right. Everybody's God-fearing Christians and like soup, bean, and cornbread. That's not fact. Right. That's not how everybody is. And we talk about, and we go into even the terrorist element, and anybody who's willing to die for their cause is a dangerous individual. Mm-hmm. So those are things that I tend to think about you go into the predator side and the criminal element, I think about those types of people.
But let's circle back to something that we started this with, and that is that I don't think the average American, because of some of the things you both talked about, is ready for the level of violence because they've just never been in that. And maybe at the most they've been in a schoolyard scrap when they were a kid, but now as an adult, they've never had to close with somebody, that close, intimate space of violence. And what have you seen, like maybe in the dojo or maybe as a cop?
We actually just talked about this Wednesday, right, Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
And I went through the law enforcement academy in
A long time.
99 or 2000. Rich, I don't know what year.
Back in the 70s.
Way before me. It was.
He had a horse.
It was actually
Patrol car.
Rampart. I
That's
think
true.
was the academy he went through. But just the people, the generation that's coming in today, how many have actually been in a fisticuffs, in a fight?
Mm-hmm.
They don't. So I'm going to be honest with every American that's within earshot. You don't know what your reaction is until you get hit in the face. You don't know what's going to happen until that happens to you.
Who was that, Tyson? Everybody's got a plan until they've been punched.
That's
in the
right.
face.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's when you're looking through the blood and tears, the game changes.
And even in martial arts dojos or whatever class you take, self-defense, whatever, when it comes time to punch that bad guy in the face that's trying to rob you, this isn't his first rodeo.
No.
This isn't the first time
That's
this has
right.
happened to
That's
him.
right.
So, don't land your strike and then step back and see what his reaction is.
Right.
Right.
Take the fight to him.
There's an adage that says, if you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics suck. Would y'all agree with that?
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's another thing that I think we need to talk about it. I'm reading an excellent book by Paul Howe, if you haven't checked it out already. A really good book by a former Delta Force guy.
He was at
CAD,
Battle of
whatever.
Mogadishu.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Good dude, but he talks more about being proactive, okay, instead of reactive. And that's one of the unfortunate things with self-defense. I think a lot of people find themselves in that reactive cycle. Well, I have to react to him. I've got to wait for him to do something. But that's not necessarily the case, is it?
No, not necessarily. I mean, from a police standpoint, they want to know what happened, so you need to be able to articulate that. If humans communicate both verbally and non-verbally, most of which is non-verbal. So a lot of times you'll go to classes and you'll see, shoot and no shoot targets, and half the time they're using the shoot targets, but they put a piece of tape over the gun. Well, if you think about this from the way your brain works and the way humans communicate, even the no shoot target, everything except for the fact he's displaying a gun is telling you he is not your friend.
That's right.
And then we go to these classes and we wonder, oh, you shot the no-shoot target, man. You suck, you shot.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, this guy, in the heat of the moment as you're speeding through things, yes, you should pay attention to the fact that he has a gun. But if you think about the way humans communicate, he's telling you to shoot him.
Right.
That's right.
And that's true. One of the classes we teach when we teach firearms instructor development is to talk about how humans communicate. And one of the things is like tone and conversation. Kevin, those are nice pants. I'm sorry. Andrew, those are nice pants. Or Andrew, nice pants. It's the same words, different tone, but it conveys a different meaning. And you need to be able to articulate, like you said, why did I feel it necessary to punch that guy in the face when all I did was step up to me? Well, maybe it was the way he talked to you. Maybe it was the way he displayed it. Maybe he did brandish
Use of
something.
hands.
Maybe his hands were in your face. And you thought, a reasonable person would assume that we're fixing to have an altercation. And
Well, I think, Rich, you hit on a good point there. Everybody has to make that decision. There's a line in the sand.
yeah.
Well, you go off the principle of reasonableness. If you go back to some fist fight in a bar, just simple assault. Okay, well, I punched this person. Well, the police and the courts are going to ask you, why did you punch this person? Well, because he said some mean things. Well, that's not enough of a reason.
Right.
That's not enough of a reason. But if you say, okay, well, he was, yelling obscenities, he was being vulgar to my wife or whoever I was with, he started coming to us in an aggressive manner with, his right hand balled up and behind his legs, he thought I didn't see it. Well, then now you start articulating to a jury, then them start thinking eternally because they're the ones judging your fate. Well, okay, I can understand that now because you've added those details that you decided to see, pick up on, and articulate to other people, not just, he said mean things and I punched him in the face.
Right.
It doesn't quite meet the criteria.
No, it doesn't. And I think that going back to the level of violence, one of the things I think we can all agree on is with the perpetrator that you're going to come in contact with, you need to meet their level of violence and exceed it. Would you agree to that?
To a degree, yes.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, you can't shoot somebody because they punch you in the face,
No.
that kind of escalation.
Right.
But, you know, if someone, for instance, is holding a gun on you, you know, at arm's reach or whatever, and they're demanding your wallet, you know, at that point, you're authorized to use lethal force. Is it the best option at the time to draw your gun? That's debatable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but if you decide to grab that gun and perform a disarm, so to
Mhm.
speak, you need to do that as, you know, with as much vigor and intensity as you can do it, you know, because your life depends on it.
Right.
You can't just go at this, you know, half-assed, so to speak,
Mhm.
and throw a punch and look at the person, well, how did they take that? This person's been punched in the face before.
Right.
So, you know, throw strikes in combination, things like that. You know, when you go to disarm, rip the gun out of their hands, not just like you've been practicing, you know, like you see a lot of policemen, they take the guns away, and you know, we go through so many repetitions that it becomes boring and everybody's just.
If you go half speed with someone like that, you're expecting rational actions from an irrational person.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts you in a very, very dangerous situation.
Exactly. In reality, if you pull that gun from their hand, even if they hold on to it, their arm should come with it.
That's right. That's right.
And
you
that's
can call that violence or aggression, whatever you want to
well,
call it.
that's another thing I want to talk about, and that is the visualization.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're in that situation for the first time, and I think me and Mike touched on it. There was a pilot that was faced with a really significant problem mid-air, and him and his co-pilots worked it out as if they had been in this situation 1,000 times, which they actually had never been in before. But every morning they would ride to the airport, and he would ask his co-pilots, "Close your eyes, visualize this with me. You're in the right seat, you're in the left seat. What are you going to do?" And he gives them the variables. Go, and he wants them to reach out and touch all the buttons that they would touch. And I think that's important to visualize it. If you're going to muzzle strike somebody, visualize punching that muzzle through somebody's face. See in your mind's eye the teeth getting knocked out and that front sight post going right through their...
In your mind, it could look like a cartoon.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, I like the podcast with William April. He talked about, you know, he would read the paper, read about these robberies or whatever. He would visualize it happening to him to the point that his heart rate was elevated. You know, things like what a lot of people don't realize is through those focused, intense visualization exercises, your mind is actually starting to form the pathways, the neurological pathways to make your hands do that.
Mm-hmm.
So once you begin those, you know, like with the pilots, they had actually moved their hand to those switch locations. So when it actually happened, they realistically had practiced it several times.
Absolutely.
Back to
even
sports
realizing.
physiology.
Exactly.
I mean, baseball players do the same thing. Football players do the same. They visualize them. So they use that to make millions of dollars a year to be able to do those things. It's all the same neurons firing off. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in order to survive a violent encounter, obviously we need to have skills, right?
Mhm.
So that starts with knowledge. So we have the knowledge base, we develop the skills, and then finally we need to have a system to employ that, whether that's the correct EDC,
Right.
the correct system of maybe preparedness with mental and physical, and then finally we need to have the attitude. And the attitude is, I'm going home today. And
Absolutely.
I remember when I was a police officer, and even before that when I was just a bouncer at several nightclubs, I'd always get in my car, and before I started the car, I'd say a prayer, because I'm a Christian and that's what I do. I want to arm myself spiritually as well. But I would say that at the end of the prayer, I'd always say, today's the day. You know, you just never know. Today's the day, and then I go to work. One of the things, you know, Mike Seeklander says before he shoots a stage, and I like it, I think it's applicable even to defensive shooters, and that is, grip the gun, see the sights, be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that.
No, yeah, I agree with that. And I've actually, I'm not even to where Mike is yet, but I get about halfway there, and you know, in between some stage, I'll forget it. But if you can apply all those things throughout an entire stage or an entire defensive situation, I think what he's doing in that situation is just a level of focus that he's bringing, a level of focus and intent.
Right.
Mike Seeklander's not a guy I want to mess with because I know his focus, his intent is probably at a, you know, not to brag on Mike too much, but it's probably inhuman level.
Well, a lot of your skills too is, you know, in competition you've got the tactical guys that say they're just paper punchers, and then you got the paper punchers who say the tactical guys are just tactical teaming. your brain doesn't understand the difference in fast, accurate shooting.
Right.
Fast, accurate shooting is fast, accurate shooting. Your mind and your preparedness makes it to where you can put that front sight on a person instead of a paper target.
Right.
The actual physical motor skill of drawing your gun and firing it fast and effectively is the exact same, whether it's a tactical shoot house or whether it's a stage at a USPSA match.
Let's talk about something real quick on this surviving a violent encounter thing, because I think one of the things we need to understand is that human beings adopt certain postures when they're confronted with these kind of things. You know, there's fight or flight is the one we all heard, but it's actually fight, flight, freeze, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you think about it in those terms, all I need to do is get you to adopt something other than wanting to fight me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
so how do I do that? How do I put you in that mental space? Because here's another thing a lot of people don't think of. I'm fighting your mind. It might look like I'm fighting your body to the outside person, but unless I shut you down, unless I knock you unconscious or shoot you in the brainstem or something like that, I'm not going to defeat you physically. I'm going to defeat you mentally, where you want to run off and
Right.
go find somebody else to mess with. What do you think about that?
I think it's true. A lot of it has to do with control. What I've found through taking people into custody, and y'all probably found the same, is when they try to fight it, if you control them and you get them to a point where they don't think they can win, and that's whether that's through strikes or wrestling them down and
It can be through
performing a dress
presence.
law. It can be through anything. Once they realize that, hey, this is going to be very bad if I keep fighting or if I start to fight, then they immediately start to give up. And once you admit that defeat in your own mind, it's all pretty much over.
And I agree completely. There's a rare instance, probably more rare than people realize, is that person who has realized they have nothing else to live for. And that's a very dangerous individual.
Let's talk about, I went to a school one time, they talked about, they gave guys who were violent predators, watch the same city street and point to the ones that you would attack. And they brought them in one at a time, and yet they picked out the same kind of people. So I think it starts with presence, you know, just like when we know from the use of force continuum.
Officer presence.
Officer presence
Yeah.
is the first thing, but really that officer presence. And if you carry yourself in a way, your body's squared, your head and eyes are up and alert, I think, and you know, you physically look like you have good command of your body. I think that's going to stop a lot of problems before they ever start.
I would agree with that.
Oh.
Yes, I would agree.
I
with
mean,
that.
when you go back to the living the two different lives things, you know, don't be so arrogant to think man's not an animal. You know, humans are just animals. So a predator is going to be just like a predator in the wild. They're going to look for somebody they think is weaker, somebody they think is sick. I mean, how many times have you heard of elderly women at the grocery store getting their purses taken?
That's exactly right.
Well, they don't come take it off a 30-year-old woman who looks like she works out at the gym all the time. No, they're going to go after grandma
Easy
who's
prey.
on her walker
Easy
because
prey.
it's easier. It's easier for them to get what they want. And so if you make it, or if you even, like William April says, if you even look like you're not an easy target, whether you notice bad guy or not, if you look like you notice them, then that may be just enough for them to deselect you as a victim and move on to whoever's walking around with their head in their phone or you know, digging around in their purse or not paying attention, just go through life like everything's just hunky-dory and nothing bad could ever happen to them.
Yeah, and so these the transitional space argument, I think, is what these times that when we're not at our home, when we're transitioning from our home to maybe our place of work or our home to where we're going to go shop or whatever, those are the times we're in danger. And I will tell you that the National Vital Statistics data bears that out. It says murders are more likely to occur on or near a roadway. So what that tells me is I'm in a transitional space. So these are the times when your Facebook can wait, guys. Check the Facebook when you're at home. Check the Facebook when you're in a crowded restaurant, something like that. But not, like you said, when you're walking down the street.
And you try to minimize those as you can. Everybody gets on the interwebs and they get all up in arms. But my situational awareness, it's like, okay, well, let's say you got a 2-year-old. Try to put your 2-year-old in a car seat and maintain a situation.
That's right.
Not gonna happen.
Impossible.
I mean, you can toss them in the car and drive off if you want to, but you run a lot bigger risk. You trying to hook an infant into a car seat, you're not going to be looking around you with your head on a swivel. It just can't. Both of those things can't happen at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. Well, how do you mitigate that?
I mean, if you have someone with you, or sometimes life's a trade-off.
Yeah.
What's more important?
Well, yeah, I think
Looking around you for a statistically low thing. I mean, we carry guns because of the stakes, not because of the statistics. So sometimes you just got to trade off. I would rather my child be buckled into a seat safely because a car wreck is more probable than me being mugged in a parking lot, or maybe, you know, you do your due diligence before you even get to your car. You check your car out, check underneath it and all that stuff before you even open the door. That way you're constantly bringing those odds to a bare minimum before you start losing.
I want to talk about the odds thing because it goes back to the confirmation bias. So if every single day I go, that guy might be a bad guy, he might attack me. He didn't. It didn't work out. Oh, well, what about that guy? Oh, in the corner over there. He looks at now. He's walking by. He's in. And so then you eventually go, well, there's no real threat here. See, my world gets shaped to where there really isn't a threat. And then that one day, the black swan event happens, right? The thing that statistically was probably going to happen to somebody else, and that happens to me. And when that moment comes, like we said earlier, fight as if your life depended, because it does. I hope you've done your visualization exercises and you visualize yourself succeeding in those moments. And you ramp up that level of violence and intensity and aggressiveness to a level maybe you've never been to before. And in that moment, I think you'll win and survive. Guys, anything else before we wrap this up?
Nothing to add.
I'd say keep your fitness up in a fight.
That's
Your
big.
fitness is number one. I mean, you can't, if you do nothing else, do cardio. If you can outlast somebody in a physical altercation, you can typically turn those tables.
Absolutely.
You know, especially if it's not a lethal one.
Hit the bag for a minute to see.
Exactly.
1 minute, 60 seconds.
You know, if you're fighting over a gun, as long as I can hold on to it and not get winded and you pull it out of my hands, then eventually it'll come out of yours if I can outlast you.
Well, and that is a great point. You know, your level of fitness is incredible because you know response time is going to be 3 to 5 minutes, maybe more, depending where you're at. I know I live way out in the country; it's going to be probably 20 plus minutes when somebody gets out there. So you have to be able to last. And I'll tell you, I think we've all been police officers, and Andrew, obviously you're a current police officer. I've wrestled to the ground and fought guys that looked like they were in great shape, but they weren't. And you know, they eventually just
All fluff, no filler.
That's right. All flash, no bang.
That's right.
Anything else, guys, before we close this thing down?
No?
All right.
No, I
anything?
appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, guys, listen, thanks for joining us here again. And remember, the fight's coming. Are you ready?